Hi, my name is Mark Zellefrow, and I'm a board-certified behavior analyst with Oakland University's Center for Autism Outreach Services. In this week's video, I'm going to be talking about teaching a new skill using task analysis and behavior chaining. So when we're looking at teaching a new skill, one of the ways that we often do this is through using a task analysis. And what a task analysis is a way that helps us break skills down into smaller teachable units and produces a series of sequentially ordered tasks or steps that, again, we kind of individualized based on a person's age or skill level or prior experience with a task. It's a great way for adults to help fade out sort of themselves when teaching a task, as well as gaining independence for the person working on this skill. It's also great for consistency across people in different environments and looking at sort of your treatment package as a whole. So helps keep consistency, say, between home and the classroom, or again, maybe someone's receiving ABA therapy or speech therapy or OT. And having this task analysis, again, helps all parties kind of remain consistent and make sure we're teaching the skill the same way. An example that I'm going to use throughout the video today is brushing teeth. So when looking at a task analysis for brushing teeth, it can be done in a variety of ways with, as simple as maybe 3 or 5 steps, all the way up to 15 steps. An example, again, of maybe those 3 or 5 step task analysis for brushing teeth would be, getting toothbrush, putting toothpaste on the toothbrush, brushing teeth, rinsing your mouth, and putting your toothbrush away. 5 steps, there you go. Maybe for another learner, it could be walk to sink, get your toothbrush, put the toothpaste on the toothbrush, put the toothbrush in your mouth, scrub your front teeth, scrub middle teeth, back teeth, spit the stuff back in the sink, rinse your mouth, rinse your toothbrush, and turn off the water. Or again, it could be more additional steps on top of that. So it depends on, again, your kind of level of learner, prior experience with the task as to, maybe it's going to be a 5-step task, or maybe it'll be a 10-step task or a 15-step task. So again, something to think about, but breaking it into those smaller units that are attainable and reachable and individualized to the kiddo, as well as, again, the steps that they will need to complete the task. Another thing that we're going to be talking about today is behavior chain and chaining. So behavior chain is just a specific sequence of behaviors that, when performed in the correct order, kind of lead to the completion of a task. So again, that could be the steps of brushing your teeth, or it could be using a vending machine to get a pop or a candy bar. It could also be something like using the restroom. So there's all these specific sequence of behaviors that have to happen in a certain order that lead to the successful completion of the task, if you will. So a lot of people ask, does the exact order of steps matter? And it depends on the task. So when we're looking at using the restroom, yes, the order of steps does matter in order for us to, successfully use the restroom. If we're looking at, putting dirty laundry in a basket, no, the steps don't necessarily matter. As long as everything ends up in the basket, then you've completed that task. So it really depends on what type of task we're looking at as to, do I have to teach it in a specific sequence, or this is an ideal sequence, but if you do something out of order, it still gets done. When looking at chaining, or referring to just chaining on its own, we're kind of looking at different methods for linking all these individual kind of behaviors and responses together to make the whole task. So we can do this using something we call total task chaining, forward chaining, or backward chaining. And we'll talk a little bit more about those in just a second. But next, we're going to talk about how do we identify the steps of this behavior chain. So hint, and hopefully you picked up on it, but to get the steps of this behavior chain, we're going to use our task analysis. We can, again, maybe perform the task yourself and write down each step to get that task analysis. Or you could also observe an individual that can perform that task successfully and write down, again, that steps that they performed and see what those are. Or again, you could also consult and ask somebody that is skilled in completing that task or performing that task and see their order of events. And again, get that great idea of the steps necessary and then be able to individualize that to your learner. So after we get those steps, what do we do next? We should assess what their current level of performance is and see kind of what steps they can do independently, what steps they might need prompted, and then what steps are they unsuccessful with and that might not be in the repertoire that we'll have to teach. So you can ask, the person to perform the task and again, sort of record which method of completing the task is done. So they were able to get their toothbrush independently. They needed prompting to put the toothpaste on their toothbrush. They were able to independently brush their teeth, but then needed prompted to rinse their toothbrush and independently put it away. So we kind of see their current level with that task, then go where next. So next we go to looking at what is that best method of chaining to teach the task and what's going to be the appropriate level of prompting for that individual. So looking at sort of our prompting hierarchy, we can look at doing it from a most intrusive to least intrusive method. We can go least intrusive to most intrusive. Whatever typically I would say is the least intrusive prompt to still help the person be successful. So if we're looking again from least intrusive to most intrusive, it could start out with just a visual prompt. So, maybe having that task analysis there of each step. Again, it could be pictures of each step. It could be handwritten out of each step. Again, there's a variety of different methods there. So that visual prompt, again, could be the least intrusive. Moving sort of up our hierarchy could be verbal prompts. So giving verbal directions as to what to do next. After that could be gestural prompts. So pointing or, maybe tapping, things along those lines. Next would be modeling. So maybe you're standing next to the person modeling that behavior and they're imitating you. Moving down would be a partial physical prompt. So that could be, maybe just a tap on the hand or on the wrist or a tap on the elbow or guiding their hand up towards their mouth. And then kind of going to that most intrusive prompt is the full physical prompt. So just doing some hand over hand assistance with the task. So again, my general rule of thumb is the least intrusive prompt necessary in order for them to be successful. So looking at total task chaining, this method, we look at every behavior or every step in the task analysis being taught every single session. So the individual is given the opportunity to complete each step in the chain every time. If they complete a step independently, then we should go ahead and deliver some type of reinforcement and move on to the next step. If a certain step is unable to be completed independently, that's when we would prompt it, move on to the next step, and continue this until, again, your entire behavior chain is completed. Again, you sort of complete that or repeat that process until all independence has been achieved. And again, you maybe meet mastery or fluency criteria and able to independently complete that task. I like total task chaining because it's kind of our natural instinct and kind of what we do on a day-to-day basis. So if we ask someone to, again, go brush your teeth, we would look and see and make sure, okay, yep, they got their toothbrush and did the first couple parts, but they're having trouble, again, maybe brushing their teeth. So gonna come in, hey, Johnny, keep on brushing, keep going. Alrighty, good job. What do you do next, bud? They rinse their mouth and then just stand there holding maybe the toothbrush. Johnny, where's your toothbrush go? Puts it away. So again, I gave him that opportunity for independence at each step, but if a step wasn't occurring, then gave that least intrusive prompt to help him be successful with it. So again, continue that day to day and do it until that task is independent. If we were to move on to forward chaining. So in forward chaining, all the behaviors and steps identified in our task analysis are taught in their naturally occurring order. So first, we're going to teach step 1 to mastery, then reinforce, and prompt the remaining steps. After that, we'll let them do step 1 on their own until they've reached mastery. Then we're going to teach step 2. Teach step 2 to mastery, and then prompt the remaining steps. After they master that, we're going to let them do steps 1, 2, and 3 independently and teach that till mastery. And then again, prompt the remaining steps and move again through all the steps in that behavior chain. Again, teaching the first step to mastery and gaining independence, and then prompting the remaining. Letting the first 2, again, go independent, prompt the remaining. First 3 independent, prompt the remaining. So we're moving sort of forward or from the first step all the way to the back. Again, I kind of like it because it's a straightforward and kind of simple process for people implementing. However, it can be time consuming if, again, you're having to teach every single step and again, just sort of prompting the remaining. So sometimes, again, you have to watch out for prompt dependency there. So that's where that least intrusive prompt comes into play in order for someone to be successful. So moving on to backwards chaining. This one, we're kind of flipping the tables. So all the steps or behaviors identified in our task analysis are taught by us completing all of the initial steps for the individual and only having them complete the last step. Then they would complete the second to last step and third to last step, moving again from back all the way to forward with that independence. So if we were to do this one, again, we would prompt, getting the toothbrush, putting the toothpaste on, brushing the teeth, spitting it out, and then let them put their toothbrush away independently. After they master putting the toothbrush away independently, then we would come back next session or next day, we would prompt getting the toothbrush, prompt putting the toothpaste on, prompt brushing the teeth, then teach that rinsing mouth to mastery and independence and allow them to do that step independently and putting the toothbrush away independently. After that's mastered, again, we would prompt getting the toothbrush, prompt putting toothpaste on the toothbrush, and then teach and allow independence for brushing teeth, rinsing their mouth, and putting the toothbrush away. So again, working from us doing all the first 4 steps and them only doing that backward to that last step, then us doing the first 3 steps and allowing those last 2 to be independent, the first 2 steps, so on and so forth. So again, there's a variety of ways to teach a skill, and really depends on the learner and their current abilities and their success with certain steps versus steps that still need to be taught. But again, those task analysis are a great way to break these complex skills and behaviors down into those small individual units or chains that we might call, and then putting all those units together into a behavior chain. And again, whether we're teaching total task and kind of what we do in everyday life versus that forward chaining of prompting the first step, teaching the first step and prompting the rest of the way, or backwards chaining of prompting all the steps and then independent step last. They're all effective. There's great research on all of them. So again, depends on your learner, the behavior, and again, that prompt hierarchy of, are we going to use a least to most prompting hierarchy or a most to least? Again, my general rule of thumb is the least intrusive to still allow them to be successful and learn the skill. So hopefully that gives you some great ideas or examples that you can start to use at home. And I can't wait to see what we have for you guys next week. Have a great week. Bye-bye.